In the 1970s, both Jaguar and Mercedes launched sporting Grand Tourers. For Mercedes, it was the R107 SL, launched in 1971. And for Jaguar, it was the E-Type's radical replacement, the XJS of 1975.
Although it didn't get a convertible until the mid-80s.
That is true. But both did enjoy very long production runs, 21 years for the XJS and 18 years for the SL. What are they like today and how do they stack up? Well, we thought we'd take this lovely 300 SL and this 3.6 XJS cabriolet on the road to find out.
But first, our friends at Lancaster Insurance are running monthly giveaways. You can win all sorts, from experience days to tools, restaurant vouchers and tech. So click the link below at the end of the video to enter their latest competition.
Whereas you could argue that the Jaguar XJ-SC was the wrong car launched at the wrong time, the Mercedes R107 SL, for me, probably was an example of the right car at the right time. Mercedes had enjoyed fantastic success with the W113 edition of the SL, but it was very much a product of its era, that raw, carefree, sporting era of the 60s. Come the 70s, there was a need for something else, particularly in key markets like North America. The R107 came out in 1971, offering a package that was more sophisticated, more refined. It was 60mm longer in the wheelbase, it was 105mm longer overall, 30mm wider than the car it replaced. And it had an air of sophistication about it thanks to its taut Teutonic lines. And there's no denying the build quality, it just feels like it's hewn from granite. When you close these doors, they just feel like they're made of lead. The whole thing has just got such a grown-up, solid feel. So when it was launched, it came with a 3.5 litre V8 engine. That was for the European markets. The US market had a 4.5 litre V8, but it was strangled for emissions and therefore only produced 192 horsepower. It's a heavy car. It's heavier than the XJS, weighing just over 1,500 kilos. That gave the V8 fairly leaden acceleration, 0 to 60 in about 9.5 seconds. There was a choice of a 5-speed manual, but it was seldom specified. So the R107 was well received when it was launched in 1971, and it enjoyed critical feedback as well as good sales success in those early couple of years. Sadly, war in the Middle East meant that suddenly the people were very aware of fuel, or rather the lack of it. Mercedes was forced to bring in the 280 SL, the 6-cylinder car, as their supposed frugal option. But if ever there was a further testament to how good the concept was from launch, there were very few changes to the car beyond that. There was a mild facelift in 1986, where we also saw the intro of the 560 SL V8. The 280 SL was replaced by this, the 300 SL, but those changes from 86 were pretty much the only changes left until it was eventually replaced in 1989 by the R129 version. And think about its success on the big and small screen alike. It was the key protagonist to hit TV show Heart to Heart. Devon Miles, the head honcho in the TV series Knight Rider, drove an R107 SL. James Dempsey in Dempsey and Makepeace drove around in that for 3 whole series, and it appeared in countless other Hollywood films. It just had that iconic celebrity status. It lives up to the Mercedes badge, everything about it. For a start, I love the styling. It's absolutely timeless. The proportions are brilliant. This car still looks good today, bearing in mind that we're now talking about a 50-plus-year-old design. This interior is glorious, and it's so well made. It's really solid. Ergonomically, it's superb. All the controls are really close to hand. The box steering system certainly lacks any feel or precision, but on a wafty barge like this, that doesn't matter so much. The 6-cylinder engine, yeah, it's smooth, and the 4-speed auto slurs its changes rather well, but progress is not quick. It's really quite pedestrian. Just accelerating away here, and it's just, you've got to always put your foot down. You really got to stamp on the throttle to make any meaningful progress. But I guess that was never the intention of the car. It was always meant to be that relaxed, sporting Grand Tourer. I love the view down the bonnet, glides off into the distance. It feels like it goes on forever. You're certainly aware you're driving something quite special, and it is impeccably refined. It rolls and it leans and it pitches, but this isn't about going around Silverstone or the Nürburgring at breakneck speeds. This is about enjoying the journey. So in its 18-year production run, the R107 shifted over 237,000 units. That's almost 3 times as many XJS's in a longer production span. So there's no denying that the R107 SL was a global success. Got to let you into a little secret. I've Never actually driven an R107 before today, but I've always wanted to do so. Perhaps be careful if you meet your heroes. Sometimes they just don't live up to expectations. But I've got to say, driving this one today, on this rather briskly cold but sunny day, I think I've just hit the jackpot. It's fantastic. I love it. Absolutely love it. This 300 SL is perfectly fine for UK roads. It's sedate and it's slow, but it's refined and it's comfortable. I just think it's absolutely glorious. Mercedes at its mightiest.
The Jaguar XJ-S didn't really have the best introduction to life. Succeeding the E-Type was never going to be easy, and with its divisive styling, its unreliability and its immense thirst, it was off to a pretty poor start. The American market was crying out for a convertible. They wanted a roadster to replace what they called the XKE Roadster, but Jaguar's time, resources and money were entirely taken up by the development of the XJ40, and they just couldn't spare it. Or could they? The XJ40 would use the all-new AJ6 engine, and this was a vital part of that car, but Jaguar really needed a test bed for that engine to make sure it was smooth and reliable enough that the XJ40 wouldn't be negatively affected, but they needed it to be a small volume model, which if it turned out to be bad, wouldn't harm Jaguar's reputation. So it was decided that there would be an XJS convertible as a test bed for the new AJ6. To keep development time and costs as low as possible, it wasn't quite a full convertible. The XJS lost its roof and those rear buttresses, but it retained its windscreen pillars and its rear side windows, because those are the expensive and complex bits to re-engineer when turning a hardtop car into a convertible. Add in T-top panels for the front half of the roof and this Triumph Stag-style rollover bar, which kept the structural rigidity of the car, and we had the XJ-SC, where, yep, the C stood for cabriolet. Now, to look at, it is still an XJS. It's still well proportioned, elegant, and to my eye, extremely pretty. But there's no denying that from certain angles, the XJ-SC is not quite so gorgeous. Those fixed rear windows just don't look right, and the side profile is a little bit awkward. It's still pretty, because it's still an XJS, but there's something not quite right about it. But if you thought the styling was awkward, the production process was another level with the XJ-SC. XJS body shells were produced at Brown's Lane. Then they were stuck on a transporter and taken to local Park Sheet Metal, who cut the roof and the rear buttresses off of it. Those beheaded body shells were taken up the road to Aston Martin's Tickford coachworks, who then set about putting in the convertible roof mechanism and that bar across the middle. So this very limited run, low volume car had to go to 3 different factories. So wonder these cars ever got made and they actually had all the right bits in them. Now, you could make the case for the XJ-SC not being a full true convertible, but what it loses in complete convertibleness, it gains, or retains I should say, in structural rigidity, because this car is way stiffer than a completely beheaded XJS. And that means that on a winding country road like this, it's a joy to drive. It doesn't scuttle shake, it doesn't shudder, still feels completely connected front to back, still rides well, I'm not being shaken out of my seat, it's comfortable and it's refined. And then there's the engine, that 3.6 litre AJ6, the whole reason the XJ-SC got the green light in the first place. Now, early examples did suffer from a little bit of a coarse, vibraty idle. The engine mounts weren't quite refined enough. But with those changed, you can appreciate this engine and all 225 smooth horsepowers in glorious refinement. And then there's the noise. It's a lovely engine this, it's smooth, it's torquey, and this convertible 1.8 tonne GT car will do 0 to 60 in 7.4 seconds. Now, most of that acceleration was aided by the gearbox, because you could get the AJ6 with a Getrag 265 manual gearbox. It's not brilliant, to be honest. It's a bit of a notchy feel to it, it's quite a long throw, and it doesn't really suit a car that is better as a Grand Tourer. But all this stuff I'm describing, the gorgeous looks, the smooth ride, the sense of occasion, it's all stuff that you can flatter an XJS coupe with as well. So did it really gain that much in becoming a convertible?
It's worth noting that also you don't get back seats, although how much use they are is up for debate, and it's small wonder that in its couple of year life, Jaguar sold just 5,000 XJ-SCs. What car called the XJ-SC a half-hearted convertible that you can't really fathom? And that's probably fair, to be honest. Effectively, it's just a big sunroof. And yet, it's still a Jaguar XJ-S with those gorgeous looks, that wonderful character, and that fantastic sense of occasion, but with the added bonus of extra sunshine. And what's not to love about that? Oh.
Well, Joe, what do you think?
Two fantastic cars, being no doubt. And unlike a lot of our twin tests, where I tend to go in preferring one or the other, this one I'm genuinely torn because I love an XJS, as you know.
Yes.
But I also love an old Merc. As you know, I love R107s. So this one I'm really conflicted. What about you?
Yeah, the same, I suppose, because obviously I've always been a Jaguar fan.
You've never mentioned it.
Like you, I really like this era of Mercedes. I was surprised and delighted that this was as fabulous as I wanted it to be. This feels quicker, more agile, more nimble.
More like a sports car. Almost.
Yes, exactly. It pains me to say it, but I think I prefer this. The Teutonic lines of this, the solidity of it, comfort. It just, for me, it's absolutely glorious.
There is something rather magical about it, isn't there? I love this. I think it's gorgeous. I love the noise of it. I love the feel of it. I love the character. There's nothing like an XJS.
Yeah.
But like I said, all the compliments I could level at the XJ-SC, I could also level at a coupe. And if I'm honest, the coupe is more for me because I don't like how compromised this is with the T-bar roof and the lack of back seat, how awkward it is to put up and down compared to that. If it was an XJS full convertible, like they did later, I would swing towards that. And if it was an XJS coupe, I would swing towards that. But as it is, when these were direct rivals, my vote goes to the 107 as well. So there you have it. Very close run thing, and we certainly wouldn't blame you for choosing the XJ-SC, but by the narrowest of margins, the winner is the R107 SL.
But could we have both? Could I have the coupe, one of those, and one of these?
Yeah, go on then.
Okay, good stuff.
This video is proudly sponsored by Lancaster Insurance. Give them a call on 01480 400 889 for an insurance quote on your classic car. And don't forget to click the link below to enter their latest competition.